Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Today, I'm excited to have Adam Mingus joining. I got to meet Adam during the Singa Segura dinner during RSA recently, and we got to talk. I got to speak with him, one of his salespeople, and we kind of decided that Adam would be great to have on the show. So thanks for joining us, Adam.
No worries. I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, always great to chat with someone that's got some history in the industry, and just based on some of our previous talks, I'm really excited.
My wife's made me admit the gray hairs finally. So yeah, okay. They came from somewhere.
Yeah, I shave mine, so that's why. I used to have a goatee, but when it got too much gray, I kind of got rid of it. But yeah, thanks for joining.
No worries.
Yep. So how is your new year going for you? Not so new anymore. We're almost halfway through it, but how are things going?
Yeah, going pretty well. I am just heading off the heels of CyberArk's Impact here in Boston, so that's where I am right now. I'm actually I live in DC, but yeah, so out here learning about their take on PAM, which is of course my big thing nowadays. So yeah, no, it's been great year so far. Everything seems very exciting. There seems like there's an emerging aspect to everything. I think it seems like everyone was waiting for the year after the pandemic. It feels to me like this is the one that everyone's going like, let's do this, and a lot of positive vibes. So I'm good.
It sure seems that way, especially after RSA, the turnout there, and people seem a little more comfortable with things. And so.
Yeah. I mean, there's still all of the trials and tribulations of, the tough parts of this job, as you are familiar with too. But yeah, I did. I heard a lot of optimism, funny enough, at RSA, despite all of our challenges, of which there are many, right? So, yeah.
So why don't you introduce yourself, kind of let our listeners know kind of your background, kind of how you got started and what you're doing today.
Yeah, sure. So long story, but I'll pick it up when I came to the U.S. From Canada. I came here for a job. I came to work for a government contractor. This was back in 2000, and so before the big thing, of course, 9/11, right? And so I came and I was working for a defense contractor and really learned a ton of stuff about security and access control, which was what I really wanted to do. So I just got in this job. I was really excited. And then 9/11 happened, and that shook everything up a lot. And so I was not a U.S. citizen at the time. I am now, but I was not at the time. And so I hung around there for a while longer, but I had to shift towards private sector work. And so I took all of that knowledge that I built inside of that DoD contractor around access control, and I'm talking writing secure operating system code. I worked on the trusted BSD project for a little while. If anybody's ever heard of that, speaking of old stuff, and so I transitioned out to the private sector and went to banking, which was sort of a natural progression because of course banks and finance need the kind of heavy hitting security that I was learning about through my work in the DoD. So it was really cool then to transition and take that on the road, as it were, and turned it into what I love to say nowadays. I was doing zero trust before it was called that. So I went into E-Trade in about 2006, I think, and my first big project that somebody let me do that I was like, I want to do this was network segmentation. I was not a network engineer, so that meant working with them. But yeah, getting, and I don't know what words I was even using back then because zero trust wasn't, the term yet, but talking about the need for zero trust concepts. And so I'm loving now seeing all of this sort of come to me with all of these earned gray hairs are letting me see everything as it converges. And I'll let you, I'll give you a chance to direct me here a little bit, but yeah, I mean, IAM and PAM is the big thing for me. I ended up really focusing on IAM, and then that shifted over the last few years into PAM. I'm sorry, I'll define those: identity access management, IAM, we frequently say, and PAM, privileged access management, which is, well, we'll talk about that a little more, but I'll let you, maybe you want to direct me. So,
Sure. Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see the evolution of IAM and PAM, especially back when I was first getting started in security. We had like a team of people that set up employee access, and back then it was just strictly access to systems. It wasn't anything to do with card access to doors. That was all part of physical security, and how a lot of things were manual. HR would have to send you an email saying this new person is starting. There was no integration. It was not seamless at all. It was very manual.
the year that everyone, I think, I say everyone, the year that a lot of people missed, I think, in RSA, that was a theme, was the convergence, right, of physical and it was a few years ago now, I want to say. But yeah, like that whole physical virtual convergence is definitely in full swing. But everybody's just really realizing that identity is kind of it. I heard these here at Starbucks event. I heard these pretty staggering statistics about how many of the breaches are based on identity, stolen credentials, that kind of thing. And so it's I find myself in the sweet spot, not totally by accident, of course, but yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time to be solving the challenges of identity, because they are really just at the forefront for a very good reason.
Yeah, and privilege access management, that's another very important area when you think about, performing pen tests and stuff. Me and some of my colleagues, we, routinely find like a spreadsheet of credentials, or people that
Yes,
have like a
yes.
file with the, admin credentials, so that way they could access it. So that is an area that's
Just heard that
evolving and coming
story.
good.
Just heard that story here at CyberArk Impact. It was that they were going on about all the challenges, and of course somebody literally said, God was up on stage just saying, we manage these accounts in a spreadsheet, and I admire that the guy had no shame in just saying it, but also it struck me that the guy's just saying that. Here we are in 2023, and it's still passwords and spreadsheets. So we have come a long way. We're talking about least privileged, like it's that's a widely accepted term. And I remember 10 years ago, even 10 years ago, having to explain it, right? So that's progress. I used to joke about the uptake of MFA, and it would take me forever, and that's now real in biometrics. So there's a lot of progress we've made, but yeah, a lot of challenges left. So for sure, and the red team
Yeah.
is really hitting hard now. So yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really amazing how quickly things have evolved, because when you just go back to think 20 years ago where we're at to where we are, where we are now, it's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and to me, it seems like a bit of a we're having to get ready, right? Because the other thing I'm hearing this year, not just at this latest event here, but others, and of course at RSA, is the prep for the critical infrastructure and all that stuff coming to a head with geopolitical tensions, right? So that's being said everywhere now this year. Speaking of the trends, and so we need to get ready for a more hardened, a more skilled, and a more emboldened attacker. As I'm sure preaching to the choir here, this audience. But yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting and scary the way a lot of that's, kind of moved from the battlefield to more uh, through our critical infrastructure and different systems. I know, what was it last year, that there was the attack on the water treatment facility in Florida, which they referred to as like a killware attack. So that's really scary stuff.
Yeah, the killware is really. I mean, the story on the street to me about it was that the ransomware finally just made its way down and got into the wrong hands, who just turned it into killware, because killware is even easier than ransomware. You just trash in the place, and you don't care if you get it back. So, it's amazing how emboldened the attackers got so quickly. It's not surprising, but it's amazing to me. And so we just really need to up defenses quickly. I'm hearing talk about air gap systems and stuff from people in places I just never would have heard before. It's a lot of interesting ideas spreading in response. So.
Yeah, and the IT, I mean, the OT and ICS environments have been pretty tricky to get people that manage those environments to buy into security.
Yeah. So the buy into security is I think what I'm hearing now is the insurance is driving it, right, for better or worse. To me, that's really been the everything. So I'm really just focused on answering that need. I haven't really been in tune with. It's funny you bring that up, but I have not been in tune with that problem at all this year. I've been thinking about a bunch of people who are now suddenly having to scramble to make a lot of things happen in cybersecurity because of cyber insurance. So their mandate's clear, and it's been kind of refreshing not to have to convince anybody of anything in my area. So oddly.
That's good to see that changing. I used to work for a company that was a consumer products company, and they had plants, and the OT folks just did not want to. And for some reasons, they've had bad experiences where something got patched and it broke production, but you always
Those
had that
systems
hard buy-in.
are those systems are very, remember how long the life cycle on those systems are, right? And so it's everything, change management, of course, risk management is change management, and it's all, but change is really difficult on those systems. So there's a reason why those folks resist it. And I don't think it's about the security. I think it's just about, well, I think if you look at it in terms of the CIA triad, you look at the A, availability. I think that's what they're very obsessed with for right reasons, right? So everybody has their slant and their bias. There's no such thing, of course, as being unbiased. But I don't. I think that they. Well, maybe I should ask you. I mean, do you think that they, in your world, do you think that they've really woken up, that these attacks over the last couple of years have changed it, brought them more? It seems to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe so. And then you see CISA, you know, advising to secure those areas, and then we're seeing attacks and things that would warrant, because before in the past it's like, they're thinking we're just a bunch of tinfoil hats, you know, knee jerk reaction to having to remediate those vulnerabilities or perform the testing and harden the security. But I think they're starting to see the proof now.
I spend my time further towards the tip, right? Because of PAM, I tend to spend my time with more people who are further ahead and pushing further ahead. But I've had to kind of, I feel like the tables are in reverse, and it's like, hey, okay, tinfoil hat there, you don't need to do that much with this
Yeah.
particular threat, right? And I'm having to basically help people understand through assessment what they really need to focus on, because they see these attacks and then they maybe outsize the risk associated with one particular thing, right? That's what I see. But like I said, I spend my time more in these areas. Much as I mentioned the air gap systems, it's only because I'm hearing people I don't usually. It's not a conversation I hear. I mean, I've done less than a handful of air gap systems. PAM, there's a market there for it, but yeah. Anyway, it's interesting world.
So you're specializing IAM and PAM. So are there any other areas that your company specializes in?
Yeah, so we have this odd juxtaposition to some where we also do network. And remember that I go all the way back. I started my career before I came to the U.S. What got me the job was all these chops in networking. Some of the first code and problems I worked on for the DoD was on cooperative. I can't remember the name of the project, but it was on cooperative networks, basically making code, making worms. So it was. I've lost my train of thought now. Where you're asking the question. First time for in the whole time. Might have to edit. Where were we going?
Yeah, we're asking how what are the things that you were specializing in besides PAM and IAM? If you specialize
Yeah.
in any other areas besides that.
So let's see if I can pick back up. So networking was a big thing. It got me it got me the role that I started with. And so when I was there, I was applying all of this network knowledge to this project on cooperative, whatever it was, on cooperative networks. And I really learned that you needed to stitch together the identity. And well, at the time, I think I viewed it more as just access control. I wouldn't have called it identity, but you needed to stitch together what I really saw as authentication and access with the network. And indeed, we were trying to blur those lines with some of the things we were doing, different problem domain, but ultimately fusing together identity and network. And so when I founded my company, I concentrate on both, because I think with zero trust, you have to be able to have control of both. If you can have every sort of identity and access management technology that you like, if you can't trust your network, zero trust isn't zero trust in anything. It's zero trust anywhere else but the network. All your trust goes into the network. So that's why we focus on network in addition to identity, and that's really us.
Good, very good. So for someone that wanted to get started on like IAM or PAM as a career, what kind of recommendations would you have?
Oh man, it's a really easy and a difficult area to get into. And what I mean is, it's easy to come to the places and give yourself access to the information, but there is a bit of a steep curve at first, so don't be intimidated. If you sort of go into these conferences, go into these learning areas where there's now, Identiverse is one of them that literally comes to mind because of the name. Is happening next week in Vegas, there's tons of areas to learn, but don't get tripped up in all the nomenclature. And I think the biggest thing I would say is just to not get caught on all of the terms. But if you're okay with a bit of a learning curve, I would just say to steep yourself in, find these conferences that are focused on digital identity, and start there, and you'll quickly find your way into a lot of interesting conversations, and then I think it unfolds. That's how it happened for me, honestly. I was at E-Trade and I wanted to solve the problem. I went off and started attending, started joining, and started talking, and before you know it, I had gained expertise. So bit of a curve, but a fun ride, and I would encourage anybody who wants to do more with identity to do it. It's just blowing up, and we need all the thinking and smarts applied to this area that we can in the next decade.
I think IAM is one of those areas that kind of gets overlooked, even from like a career perspective, because back when I was getting started in security, that was really more of one of the entry points into security than SOC. SOC became the popular entrance into security.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. I mean, my view is heavily skewed, as I mentioned, because I spent so much time in this, and literally almost half my career has been in this now. But yeah, I mean, when I first came into identity, I was like, what are you talking about? This is just a little part of security. I just got to solve some authentication problems, right? And now, half of my career later, and it's all I talk about. And there's conferences, and this CyberArk here, they just said we're an identity security company. That's the new tagline, right? Identity. So it's coming. It's here. Yeah.
Yeah, and so whenever I was mentioning as an entry point, I was talking about someone that kind of administers IAM, not necessarily the architects and the people that control and set up the technology.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wish I had knowing that I was going to talk to you. I'm remiss. I wish I had looked that up. I tell you what, if anybody wants to get in touch with me after, or maybe if there's a way that we can put something in the show notes, I'd love to follow up with you with a better answer than what I'm about to give. But there are definitely places where you can go and do these types of paid internship programs and all kinds of things that are focused on identity. And it's usually in the area of enterprise identity and access, around where I am in DC. It can be for government, but not always, right? There are large companies that need just, a lot of identity and access management help from humans, because it is a human problem. And we didn't even get to touch on AI, but, and they're going to apply that to this problem. but it still needs identity. Does still need humans for quite a while, and so find those. I'll get you better answers than this one, but find those entryways. They do exist, and for good reason, because everyone needs help.
Sure, we'll be sharing whatever information you'd like in the show notes, including your LinkedIn account, information about your organization, and anything else you'd like to share.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. That's great. That's great. Yeah.
So yeah, one question I got for you, since you're kind of in that area. So what do you think about the passwordless authentication? So what are your views on
Love you
that?
brought it up. Love that you brought it up. The reason why I love that you brought it up is because one of the very first things I did when I found my way into identity access management, 2009, 10, around there, I went to RSA, and or maybe it was a little later, 11, 12. But anyway, excuse me. I found my way into a room where they were talking about killing the password. And it was the very beginning of FIDO. And I knew some of those people, and I went on to maintain a conversation with a lot of the folks in FIDO, and they talked on and on about killing the password. And I was, of course, I'm maybe a bit of a cynic sometimes, and I sided with the one person who was on the panel who said passwords are going to be here forever. And both of those things are true. We are doing very well with Kill the Password. It's a real thing. Biometrics are here. They're happening. Like, it's for better or worse. I just saw a face recognition attack yesterday. But we are progressing towards new identity and access management models. So Kill the Password is going really well. Biometrics are here. Everybody's using them for everything from buying the coffee I bought this morning to my enterprise login. I think I still maintain, though, that passwords will always be here. And so we need to have, that's why we have enterprise PAM solutions and vaults to vault them and things. So we need to manage them just like any other part of security. But the move that continues its momentum is definitely, the consumer. I think the consumer will indeed see, near death of passwords. You'll have to be the person who wants to use a password. You kind of already are becoming that in some areas, right? So I think, as we go forward, you'll have to really want to use a password in the consumer realm. But in the enterprise realm, we'll have passwords for a long, long time.
Yeah, very, very interesting area. I was at B-Sides San Francisco back in 2019, and the founder of Ubiki was there.
Yeah.
Ubiko.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
she
Yep.
gave a really interesting talk.
Yeah, Stina, she's a very interesting lady. I had the pleasure of working with her for a little while, and with Yubico, and that technology is wonderful. I love it. I maintain, as I said, I'm a bit of a cynic, and I'll often say that I don't see a whole bunch really new, really just orders of magnitude better come in the industry. And you never do, right? I mean, most of the time, big breakthroughs don't happen. But I do consider the YubiKey to be a pretty big breakthrough. It still is, ever since they did it. I use them. It's a core part of my own OPSEC, they're very important. The advent of passkey that makes them portable across devices and stuff. This is really good too in terms of helping to bring the technology along and giving an on-ramp. But just those keys, that separated out form factor that can survive in the washing machine, I like to joke, is very valuable. Very valuable.
Yeah, you can see where that's really going to be valuable for some of the less technical, and you can see on the consumer side, because everyone has the aunt that has 10 Facebook accounts because they forget their passwords, or people are using really weak passwords so they can remember their passwords.
Yeah, and it's great to see that same FIDO and the YubiKey that you spoke of being available as an option for those. And so I think we have to help less skilled people understand how to use those things properly, such as in the case of YubiKey to have two, right? Because the core part of using that technology properly is you have a prime and your backup. But as long as you use them properly, they are excellent, and they can be a really great way to protect less technical people, ironically, given that they get sort of painted as something for the uber technical folks. So I'm glad you brought them up, actually. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, and this is definitely good. I think, kind of mentioning the less skilled people. I think really it seems like from just a overall cybersecurity stance as a country and just not globally is we really need to bring up the knowledge of the lesser skilled, because when the weakest link is always the way they get in. So if you can strengthen that, and sometimes people think rule out just basic use, but that could be leveraged in bigger
Yeah.
attacks.
No, I mean it's we didn't really get to hit on AI very much, but with AI coming, one of the things I've been hearing and seeing, and I believe, is that the AI, we will beat the human, right? Like the machine will be able to fool the human. All of those phishing attacks we're seeing this year that are like, yeah, that was a machine, I knew it was. Next year it'll be that's a machine and it fooled you. Because
Yes.
it will have figured it out. So we have to be ready for that world, and I think that's where things like YubiKeys and there are some other things that you can do with the right kind of skill and knowledge to help lesser skilled people be protected. But you're absolutely right to drill that point that we need to understand an identity and access management. One of the things that us geeks in the space lament sometimes is how we are a little bit elitist about it, and we'll have these use cases that start off with, and then one of us in the room will say, oh my god, can you really, that's not a use case that's realistic for the average person, and then everyone else is like, yeah, and we're about to spend 20 minutes arguing about it, right? So it's a real challenge to understand what the less skilled person, that's super important in this game, how to protect and help them protect themselves, because that's
Yeah,
really what
and
they need
also
to help them
another
protect
thing,
themselves.
another strength for the password authentication too is, you mentioned AI, but what you keep hearing people say once quantum computing becomes in use, trying to keep passwords secure, that's going to be difficult. So you're going to need something, a
The
better,
guy,
stronger.
I heard it said. I heard it said already that look, there's so I don't know if you've heard this. I forget the term now. If you've heard it, you can tell me. But the idea that people are caching encrypted data because they realize that one day they may be able to unencrypt it, decrypt it, a la quantum computing, right? So it was like the third leg on every PowerPoint I've seen this year from anybody, and that's absolutely that concerns me too. The AI thing is really it will encryption is. It sounds like there's just going to be a bunch of data that's encrypted today that someone's going to figure out first how to unencrypt, and then it's unencrypted, and then the game changes and we go from there. That feels like how it's playing out to me, but what do I know?
Yeah, kind of scary times. So hopefully the all the smart folks figure it out before it gets to be too big of a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's back to our point about finding on ramps to get into this stuff, and if you're already into it, stay in it and keep helping, because it's the area. I heard somebody say, I thought it was 6 in 7 breaches. I don't know where this. I feel like this stat must have a context, but 6 in 7. I thought I heard caused by a stolen credential, and I was like, no, it can't be that bad, is it?
Wow.
But if it isn't that bad, it's not far. That's the
Yeah.
thing, it's bad.
Yeah. And then the scary part is the stolen credentials being sold and all that too.
Yeah.
One.
Oh, like when I learned what seems like eons ago now, but when I learned about the black market for the stolen creds and how they all just sort of, farm them, steal them, tabulate them, sell them, it's amazing. And then I went off and told, as a cautionary tale to some of those, less skilled individuals to help motivate them before the media did such a great job of doing it. And you had to help people understand their own OPSEC. That was one of the stories. Yeah. But now I don't. I feel like I don't have to tell them anymore. So
Yeah. Just like one of the recent royal ransomware that we're hearing about these days. One of their footholds or ways in is stolen VPN credentials.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the and again with AI, like it's the attack vectors are going to get super interesting and diverse. I feel like in the next couple of years, I feel like it's going to be an opening up again. Like we sort of hacking got I mean, not look. I'm on the outside of this. I'm a red teamer being interviewed by one, but like I saw it as getting kind of converging. It all just became about identity, and it all just became phishing and whatever. Nobody was attacking the network anymore. And I heard, people say that on stage, but I think that it's coming back. I did hear another stat, an interesting stat of late. Kind of 50-1 machine identity to human identity. Right. So with that kind of ratio, you're just looking at a numbers game for where the attacks happen. So it's going to be machine identities, and that means it's going to be machine attacks. Right. It's not long before machines are attacking machine. I mean, they already are, but out in the open where we can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining today. Is there anything you'd like to say before we close out this episode?
It was a real pleasure. I thank you, Phil, for those questions. That was really great that we got to touch on the passkey and the FIDO, the YubiKey, and just thanks for a great talk today. Really appreciate it. Really love it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's always enjoy talking about the technology and of security and technology in general. And my other podcast, the Hacker Factor, we usually don't get as technical. It's more career oriented. So it's really nice to be doing these episodes where you get to geek out on technology a little bit and great talking to someone in your space.
Yeah. I loved it. I love geeking out. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.